The notification came through at 6:47 on the Tuesday morning while I was still in my pajamas waiting for my coffee to brew. It was a text from my bank, not an email. A text. The kind that shows up in the same thread as your balance alerts and fraud warnings. Mortgage payment overdue. Please contact us immediately regarding your account. I remember staring at it for a full 10 seconds. Then I checked my account. Then I put down my coffee mug, slowly, carefully, like if I moved too fast, something would shatter. And I sat down on the kitchen floor. I had set up autopay 3 years ago. I had never, not once, missed a payment. I bought my condo when I was 29. It took me 6 years to save the down payment. 6 years of working double shifts at the hospital, of skipping vacations, of driving a car with 140,000 miles on it because I refused to take on a car payment while I was saving for something real, something mine. I'm a surgical nurse. I work long hours, and I make decent money, but decent money in this country doesn't feel like much when you're doing it alone. No partner splitting the mortgage. No family helping with the down payment. Just me, a spreadsheet, and a savings account I was terrified to touch. When I finally closed on the place, I sat in the empty living room on a cardboard box and cried. Not sad crying, the other kind. The kind where your whole body finally exhales after holding its breath for years. My mother called that afternoon. I told her I'd done it. She said, "That's great, honey, but it's a lot for one person. Are you sure you can handle it?" I told her yes. She said, "You know your brother could use some help right now." I said, "Mum, I just closed on my house." She said, I know, I'm just saying." That was 3 years before the text message. My brother had always been the one who needed things. That's not a criticism. Or maybe it is, a little. But it's just the truth of how our family operated. He was 2 years younger than me, and from the time we were kids, the energy in the house followed him like weather. His grades, his games, his feelings, his plans. I learned early to be low maintenance, to handle things, to not ask for much. When he was 26, he decided to open a restaurant. My parents thought it was the most exciting thing they'd ever heard. They helped him find investors. They co-signed on a lease. My mother redesigned her whole kitchen calendar around his soft opening date. I was doing my 3rd year of nursing at the time. Nobody redesigned their calendar for that. The restaurant struggled from the start. Bad location, thin margins, a concept that didn't land the way he'd imagined. By month 14, he was underwater. By month 18, he was calling my parents every other day in a panic. I knew all of this. We had family dinners. People talked. I felt for him. I did. Starting a business is brutal, and watching something you built fail is its own kind of grief. But I also noticed that nobody ever called me asking how I was doing. Nobody checked in on my long shifts on my budget or whether I was getting enough sleep. I was fine. I always was. That was the assumption. The morning I got the bank text, I called my loan servicer before I even finished my coffee. The woman on the phone was polite but direct. She told me that 3 weeks prior, someone had contacted the bank claiming to be handling my account on my behalf. They had provided enough personal information, my social security number, my date of birth, my account number, to pass the initial verification. They had then requested a temporary payment suspension, which had triggered a review, and the review had flagged the account. I said, "I didn't authorize that." She said, "We're aware. That's why we flagged it. We also have a note here that someone attempted to restructure the loan terms. We didn't process that because it required additional documentation, but the attempt is on record." I sat there with the phone pressed to my ear so hard it hurt. "Who called?" I asked. She said she couldn't give me a name, but she could confirm the call had come from a number associated with my emergency contact on file. I had listed my mother as my emergency contact. I called my mother. She didn't pick up. I called my father. He picked up on the second ring and said, "Oh, good morning, sweetheart," in the voice he uses when he already knows something is wrong and is hoping to control the temperature of the conversation. I said, "Did you call my bank?" A pause. Not long. Maybe 2 seconds. But I've known my father my entire life, and I know the difference between a thinking pause and a court pause. Your brother needed some help, he said. We were trying to figure out options. Dad, did you call my bank and try to restructure my mortgage? We were just exploring. Did you give them my social security number? Another pause, longer this time. We thought if we could use your equity. I hung up. I sat on my couch with my hands in my lap and I thought about the 6 years. The spreadsheet, the car with 140,000 miles, the cardboard box on the empty floor. I thought about how my mother's voice sounded that day. It's a lot for one person. And I understood for the first time that she had never quite believed the condo was really mine. Not in the way that mattered. Not in a way that mattered. Not in a way that made it off limits. I called a real estate attorney that same afternoon. I know people tell these stories and the audience screams, "Why did you wait?" I didn't wait. I called at 2 p.m. on the same day I found out. I want that on record. His name was a long Polish last name that I immediately wrote down because I knew I'd never remember it. He was patient and thorough and he did not make me feel stupid, which I appreciated because I felt stupid. Not for what my parents had done. For how long I had lived in a family without recognizing what it was willing to do. He explained a few things I hadn't known. 1, that my parents hadn't succeeded in changing anything. The bank had caught the irregularity and flagged it before any modification went through. 2, that what they had done impersonating me, providing my personal information to a financial institution without my consent, attempting to alter a loan agreement, was not a grey area. It had a name. Several, actually. The attorney used words like fraud and identity theft and unauthorized account access and let them sit in the air between us without softening them. 3, that I needed to act quickly, document everything, and not contact my parents again without being careful about what I said. I asked him what I should do first. He told me to file a report with the FTC and my state attorney general's office, contact all 3 credit bureaus to place a fraud alert on my file, and call my bank back to formally document my non-consent and request a full account audit. I did all of it that day. It took 4 hours. My hands were shaking the whole time, not from fear, but from something that felt like cold, clear anger. The kind that doesn't make you loud. It makes you precise. My mother finally called back at 7 p.m. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I still have it. I've listened to it maybe a dozen times, not because I enjoy it, but because there was a period when I needed to remind myself that I had not misunderstood what happened. She said they were just trying to find a way to help my brother. She said they knew I was responsible and stable and that I wouldn't miss the payments even if things were restructured. She said they hadn't thought of it as doing anything to me, more like doing something with my assets, and that they planned to talk to me about it, just after they'd figured out if it was even possible. She said she hoped I could understand that they were in a difficult position. She said she loved me. She did not say she was sorry. I played it for my attorney the next morning. He listened without expression. When it finished, he said, "That's helpful." I knew what he meant. There's something particular about being the capable one in a family. People don't say it out loud, but the understanding gets built into the structure over time. You're reliable, so your things are available. Your stability is a resource. Your lack of drama makes you low priority in the moments when everyone's attention is going toward the person who needs it most. I had never before this understood how thoroughly my parents had absorbed that logic. My condo wasn't really mine to them. It was an asset that happened to sit in my name, which made it accessible to the family in a way that my brother's restaurant debts were not, because his were already a problem, while mine were just potential. I'm not someone who uses the word weaponized lightly, but that's what my stability had become, a weapon they were using against me. My brother texted me 9 days after I'd found out. He said he'd just learned what our parents had tried to do. He said he hadn't asked them to. He said he was sorry. I believed the second part. I wasn't sure about the first. But either way, my brother was not the one who had called my bank. My brother was not the one who had provided my social security number. My brother was not the one who had left a voicemail explaining that they had planned to talk to me about it after the fact. I wrote back, "I know this isn't your fault, but I can't talk right now." He said he understood. He didn't push. That mattered to me, and I held on to it. 6 weeks after the bank text, my parents called a family meeting. My aunt, my mother's older sister, who has always served as the unofficial family mediator, reached out to ask if I would come. She said she thought everyone needed to be in the same room. She said my parents wanted to explain. I talked to my attorney first. He said there was no legal reason I couldn't attend, but to be careful about making any statements that could be interpreted as forgiving a debt or releasing liability, and to not agree to anything in the moment. I went. I drove 40 minutes to my parents' house and sat in their living room on the couch I'd grown up watching TV from, and I listened. My father did most of the talking. He said they had panicked. He said my brother's situation had felt like an emergency, and they had made a decision in crisis that they shouldn't have made. He said they had thought my assets were more flexible than they apparently were. A word choice that told me everything about how he had framed this to himself. He said they were sorry. My mother said less. She looked at her hands a lot. At one point she said, "We didn't think you'd mind," and the room went very quiet. I said, "You didn't think I'd mind that you gave my social security number to my bank and tried to restructure my mortgage without my knowledge." She said, "We thought you'd understand." I said, "I want you to hear what you're saying." She didn't answer. My aunt was watching all of this with an expression I couldn't quite read. After a minute she said quietly, "You should apologize, properly." She was looking at my mother. My mother looked at the floor. The apology that came after that was real, I think. Partial and late and wrapped in too much self-defense. But somewhere in the middle of it my father's voice cracked, and I could see that he was genuinely ashamed. Not of what they tried to do, maybe, but of sitting here in front of me and having me look at them the way I was looking at them. I did not forgive them that day. I want to be clear about that, because I think sometimes people expect these stories to end with a table full of people who've worked through it and come out okay. That's not where I am. What I did was decide not to pursue criminal charges. My attorney had told me I had a real case. The FTC report was filed, the documentation was thorough, and the bank had records of the calls, but pursuing it would have meant years. Depositions, family testimony, my parents potentially facing fraud charges. I couldn't do that to my brother, who hadn't asked for any of this. I couldn't do it to my aunt, who had shown up and said apologise when my mother wouldn't. So I didn't, but I made some other decisions. I removed my mother as my emergency contact from everything. My bank, my hospital records, my leaseholder contact at the condo. Every place her name appeared as a person who had standing to speak on my behalf, I removed it. I added a co-worker I've been close with for 5 years. She doesn't know all the details, but she knows the shape of the situation, and she said yes without making me explain myself. I changed my passwords, all of them. Not because my parents had accessed my accounts, they hadn't, but because the act of changing them felt like something I needed to do, like re-establishing borders that should have been there all along. I also placed a credit freeze on my file with all 3 bureaus. Not a fraud alert, which expires. A freeze. Permanent until I lift it. Nobody opens credit in my name without my explicit approval. Not my parents. Not anyone. The last thing I did was call the bank and add a verbal password to my account. It's a thing most people don't know you can do. Anytime someone calls to make changes to my account, they have to provide a specific word, not my date of birth, not the last 4 of my social, not anything that my parents know. A word I chose. A word that belongs only to me. The woman at the bank who helped me set it up said, without any particular judgment, "A lot of people don't know this feature exists until something happens." I said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm sorry something happened." I said, "Thank you. Me too." I still own my condo. The mortgage payment has not been restructured. It comes out on the 14th of every month automatically, the way it always has. My relationship with my parents is not what it was. We talk, sometimes. Holidays are awkward in the specific way that holidays are when something has been said out loud that everyone wishes could go back to being unsaid. My mother calls more than my father. She asks about work and about the condo, and sometimes about whether I'm dating anyone, which makes me want to end the call immediately. I usually wait another few minutes and then find a reason to go. My brother's restaurant closed. He's working for someone else's business now, which seems to suit him better. He and I text occasionally. Nothing heavy. Enough. What I think about when I think about this whole thing is the question of what people believe they're owed when they love you. My parents loved me. I don't doubt that. But somewhere along the way they had developed a theory, quiet, unexamined, probably never put into words even to each other, that my independence meant my things were available, that taking care of myself meant I didn't need protecting, that because I wasn't struggling, what I had wasn't quite as hard won. I saved for 6 years. I drove a car with 140,000 miles on it. I worked nights and weekends, and I said no to so many things I wanted because I was building something. And the people who were supposed to know that best somehow managed to forget it the moment someone else needed what I had. That's the part I'm still working through. Not what they did, what they believed underneath it that made them think they could. My condo is quiet in the mornings. That's the thing I love most about it. I make coffee and I stand at the kitchen window and the city is just starting to wake up and it is entirely, completely mine. My name on the deed, my payment going out on the 14th, my verbal password that nobody else knows. I bought this place with 6 years of work and I am the only person who decides what happens to it. Some days that feels like a sad thing to have to say out loud. Most days it just feels true. There's a version of this story where I'm the villain, where I'm the daughter who filed a fraud report against her own parents, who removed her mother from her emergency contacts, who drove 40 minutes to a family meeting and left without forgiving anyone. I've thought about that version. I understand why some people would tell it that way. But here's what I keep coming back to. Actions have weight. Not in a cosmic sense. Not in any religious framework. Just in the plain, observable way that what you choose to do determines what happens next. My parents made a choice. They decided that my stability was a resource they could access without asking. They provided my social security number to a financial institution. They attempted to alter a loan I had spent 6 years earning the right to hold. Those were choices. And choices like that don't disappear. They land somewhere. What landed for me was clarity, not bitterness. I want to be honest about that distinction, because they're not the same thing. Bitterness is when you're still hoping the other person will realize what they did. Clarity is when you stop waiting and just see it as it is. I saw my parents clearly, maybe for the first time. I saw what they had quietly believed about me for years, that my self-sufficiency made my things available, that because I didn't ask for much, what I had wasn't quite as protected. The thing about being the capable one in a family is that nobody teaches you to defend against the people who are supposed to be on your side. You build your defenses outward. You protect yourself from the world. You save for 6 years and you read every document and you set up autopay and you think you've handled it. You don't think to build a wall inward toward home. That felt like something I didn't need. Until I did. What I had to learn, and I'm still learning it, is that being smart about the external world isn't enough if you're not equally clear-eyed about the people closest to you. My attorney was thorough. My documentation was solid. I acted within 24 hours. Those things mattered. But the harder work was internal, understanding that loving someone doesn't require letting them decide what your assets are worth, or who they belong to, or whether you needed them as much as someone else did. My brother is trying to rebuild. My aunt still calls occasionally. My parents and I talk in the careful, surface-level way that people talk when something true has been said and nobody knows how to unsay it. I don't know what any of that looks like in 5 years. I'm not trying to predict it. What I know is this. I still make my mortgage payment on the 14th. I still stand at my kitchen window in the mornings. The verbal password is still mine, and mine alone. And if there is any lesson worth carrying out of everything that happened, it's a simple one. That the life you build with your own hands deserves to be defended with the same steadiness you used to build it. Not loudly, not angrily, just clearly and without apology. That's what I'm still practicing. Being clear,